In this video, we'll take a look at how to create timelines using Tableau. Now, Tableau might not be the visualization tool that you automatically think of when creating a timeline, and not a lot of people really consider a timeline to be that much of a breakthrough visualization, but timelines are important. They're important parts of visualization, and learning how to make them is essential because they will be a critical piece of your visualization and data exploration tool belt. So in this case, we'll go through the sample exercise of creating a presidential timeline. And we will also use calculated fields and some other techniques as well in the next few videos. So we're going to combine some of our techniques as we've been doing and continue combining them to create a visualization that tells us a little bit about change over time. We're going to use a Gantt bar chart to create this one, and it's pretty easy. So let's connect to some data and let's learn some Tableau. So I'm going to connect to an Excel file here, not a JSON file, an Excel file, and presidential terms. And so I've connected to the presidential terms. And we can see that we have left office, certain dates, and I just want to, we'll see that the presidents are shown in order of serving. Right? And so let's go to worksheet 1 and start working on the presidential date chart. Okay. So we're going to create 2 new calculated fields. So one of the things we want to be able to visualize is we want to show the presidential chart or timeline showing when presidents served, but we also want to have a reference to not only their time in office, but also their lifespan. So we want 2 calculated fields for that. And we'll be using the left office, took office, born and died fields in order to create that calculation. But you'll notice that as we pulled this over from the data source, if you take a close look, born, died, left office, took office, right? These are all listed, right, as text, as strings. And that's not their data type. And so if I try to make a calculated field with them, the calculated field will yield an error because it cannot make a mathematical calculation with a string. So we need to convert these first into a numerical format that it can use for a calculation. And so here we're going to convert, right? We're going to change it. And we're going to change that data type to a date because that's what this is. This is a date. So the born, the died, that's a date. So we're going to, once again, convert that or change that data type to date. And it's not date and time because we don't see the time that president expired. We're seeing the date. So the month, day, year. So once again, we change the date. And the took office is a date. And so now we've converted. Now we can create our special fields. And so we've created calculated fields before, and most of it's been pretty simple mathematics. Your control chart got a little more involved. And I've had a few students ask, what language is this? And it's pretty simple. If you're used to coding things in Excel or are familiar with SQL, Tableau has its own language that it uses. It's pretty much like SQL or SQL if you prefer. So it's fairly similar. And it's one of these skills that you'll learn more in databasing and so on. So I'm going to create my calculated field. And the first one we'll create is lifespan. So I want to create lifespan of the president. And in lifespan, I am trying to see how long the president lived. And I'm basically writing an if-then-else statement. So if is null. So if the president did not die, right? So if there is no death date, that's a null field, right? So we'll take the died date. If is null, died, and I want to actually put that in parentheses. Make that appropriate. So is null, died. Okay. Then I wanted to display today's date, because if that president hasn't died yet, we'll say that living up to the present or today, right? So we want today. And we want to subtract born, the field born, minus the date born to get the lifespan or age. So basically, this code is going to look and say, is this president dead? If died is blank or null, then we take today's date and subtract the born date from today's date to yield, right, the lifespan. Okay? If that isn't right, let's say that means that there is a died date, else we take the died date. Oops. That was a mistake. We take the died date. Else, drop the died, minus the date born. So, then, since we're done, we have to tell the program to end, so we tell it end. Okay, so the calculation is valid. So, very simply, we're saying if, computer, please look up the born date or the died date. If that's null, that means the president is still alive. Then take today's date, subtract the born date from it. That means the president is that many years old. That's the lifespan. Okay, or that's the dates. Else, take the died date, subtract the born date from it, and that's the lifespan. Okay? And once you're done checking, end. Calculation's valid. We've named it lifespan. Okay, we've created that. So we've created our first one. So now the next one is the time in office, and it'll be very similar. Now, we also notice left office here is also a text field. It's a string. It's not a date. And we need to convert that or change that to a date. Took office, we need to change the same. Convert or change the data type to date. So now we can create another calculated field. And it's very similar, except that we'll call this one time in office. Time in office. Okay. And it's an if-then-else statement. So if is null, right? We start off with the left office, right? So if the president hasn't left office yet, the president's still in office. Then what we say is we take today minus the date of taking office or took office. And that should say how many years the president's been serving. So this only counts for the current president. Else, right, the other president's left office. So we take the left office date and we subtract the took office date. Now, once again, we tell the computer to end, not eld, but end. Okay, calculation's valid. Okay, so we've got these calculations set. And so now we've created these things. Now we can start visualizing them. So I take the column shell, the took office, right? We're going to start with the took office and columns. And we're going to change this data type to continuous. And we want to focus on day. So we're going to, or actually what we're going to do is here, day, like this. Now, we're going to change the marks type here from automatic, even though it shows Gantt. Let's not always use the default, and let's get in the habit of changing that automatic. Okay. Now the time in office, we take from the measures pane to the size shelf, right? So here we take the time in office, right? And we put that under size. And that'll give us that wide bar. Now we take party, right? And we drag that from dimension. So we want to know the political parties, right? And we take that to color. Now it's come up with color bands for parties. One of the things I want to do with the parties, though, in color, is I want to edit these colors. The Democrats, we still popularly associate with blue. Republicans are not associated with blue. That's associated with red. So I want to choose red for Republican. The Federalists were often, called rather friendly to monarchy, so we'll call that purple. We'll give it the royal purple. The salt of the earth Democratic Republicans, they were brown. We'll associate that with the soil and growing. Independents, we can leave blue. And Whigs, let's call that green. Okay, now we've applied it. And so now we've separated that into colors that a lot of people will understand, right? The red, the blue, Democrats and Republicans. So now we want to start sorting and doing these kinds of things. So we drag president here, right? And we put the president in the row shelf. Okay, so now we've got these dots that kind of look like what happened when my Atari 2600 used to go on the fritz. So the presidents are listed alphabetically by first name. So we want to sort this. And so if you remember back to custom sorting, not hard to do, right? You can go to president and sort. And we want to sort not by data source order. We want to sort by a field. So we select field. And we want to sort here, not time in office. What we want to sort is, right? We want to sort and we want to sort on took office. And we want not the count, but the minimum, the first day of taking office. And now we've got the sort that we want, and we want it ascending because we want to start with the earliest and go to the most recent. Okay, so we see this. We also see that Grover Cleveland here, of course, has the most interesting of bars because he's the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms as president. So one giveaway, so that's right. Okay, so we've got this. Now, we can also see their total lifespan. So we can take born, the date born from the dimensions area, and we put this to the left of day. Okay, and we change this from blue, right, which is discrete, to green, to continuous. So we have this to the left here. And so in the marks area, open the day born. And here, we want to go here, so day, okay. And day born, Okay. And we replace this, we remove some time in office. Okay. And we take the sum of lifespan. So we take lifespan and we put that in color. And then we remove, there we go. And then we go here to day took office. Okay. And now we go here in the column shelf and we make this a dual axis chart. Okay. Dual axis. And we right click here and we synchronize the axis. And here we want to take a look at the size. And we also want lifespan. Here, size. There we go. And there is something interesting about Grover Cleveland's lifespan that is really becoming interesting. Let's view the data. That's not his lifespan. So we know that that's the date he died. And one of the things that we've got about Grover Cleveland, lifespan, is because lifespan, instead of sum, let's go to minimum. And there we go. We changed that size measure to minimum. There we go. And so I'm also going to take this lifespan color out. So that way we have gray, and then we can respect and see the presidential term limits here, or the times in office. And so this is how you can create a timeline. So we can even rename this the sheet timeline of U.S. presidents (1789 to 2017). And there we go. And so here's a nice way of making that visual, but you could do it for a number of things, especially if you're looking at examining, say, committee leaderships, or analyzing, if you're working in, say, a government arena, and you're looking at committee leaderships and other things, and trying to show the, that span, and then try to correlate that or overlay that with other data, you can. So this simple exercise turns out to be quite useful. And so here we can also mark other key indicators. So for example, we might want to show like the rank of the president or the president's number. So we can take the number president, right, and put that in rows right here, just like ranking. So the first president to the 44th. Okay, so we've got that. Some other things we can do. Let's say we wanted to put indicators for major periods of time. So for example, if I wanted to make a marker or reference line, and I want to make it here, and I want to do propane, and I want to make it a band, and the value would be, label would be custom, and this would be, let's say, World War II. And be a constant, and from, say, 12 you can set your date. Seven, 1941. So December 7th. 6 a.m. And the band 2, and we'll create a constant, and we will say August 10th. No, not 1961. 1945. And August 10th, 1945. Okay. And I don't want to show the label. We'll say that's for the entire table. Okay. And so you can make those little markers there. So you have a way of actually making little markers and making these timelines. So the point is, you can very simply make another type of chart that shows change over time. And here's how you do it using Gantt bars.